orientation to Hindu studies. That's a topic which I'm going to talk about today. So the first question I have is, why do we need Hindu studies? After all, we have our family traditions, we have mandirs and rituals, we have gurus and ashrams. On top of this, why do we need an academic study of Hindu Dharma? Why do we need it? So I'd like to hear some answers in the chat window, okay? Why do you think we need an academic study of Hinduism? Anybody wants to respond? Okay, there are no responses, okay? Okay, good, all right. Yeah, from Anna, okay. To create rigor in thinking, rigor leads to depth. Excellent, it's a very good point. Most people don't have a good understanding beyond performing rituals. That's a very good answer. So today, Hinduism is pretty much reduced to rituals, right? We go to mandirs, we participate in rituals, and the younger generation doesn't even understand what the rituals mean and why people do the things they do, etc. There's no centralized or formalized education for Sanatana Dharma. We need one. Yes, that's a very good point. It makes my environment to know me, know who I am, what I represent. Yeah, that's an excellent point. Nowadays, we have to represent ourselves to others. Otherwise, somebody else is constantly representing us, right? As you all know. We practice in India, we studying makes us more knowledgeable. Yes. Scientific and scriptural authenticity for our rituals. Okay. Okay, good. So let me go back to the deck. Now, we Hindus have a particular problem that we face. Okay. And I thought the very best way to illustrate this problem is using this chart, which represents the burden of our history, which is, we could say, almost the recent history, the last few hundred years. And this chart represents a portrayal of India's share of the world GDP in comparison to USA's share and the UK's share of the world GDP. Okay, and if you see this chart, our GDP was very, very, healthy. Our GDP share was very healthy for a long time, and then it collapsed. There were two events that caused the collapse. The first was the Islamic invasions. Wave after wave after wave of Islamic invasions started happening almost from the 7th century onwards, 7th, 8th, 9th century, and on all the way. But then more insidiously, the colonization that was unleashed by England in India caused a further collapse, which is almost you could say a dramatic collapse of our GDP. And all of us were born here. And one of the enormous challenges of our time is that it is very hard for us to imagine how Hinduism was, or India was, at a time when it did not face the kind of adversity that it is facing in recent times. Okay, and in fact, the greater difficulty is that we tend, as a people, to project our current day challenges and difficulties onto our entire history, and we imagine that that's how it was. It always was for a long time. Okay, a long time as in throughout our history. And one of the challenges with this uh, uh, this particular graph and what it represents, all the implications of it, is something that I don't think we all fully have studied, understood, assimilated, and are able to speak from. Now, I'm going to superimpose a few things on this. So in ancient times, there were these very famous universities, which were the centers of learning of those times. But as time passed, they gave way to the Oxfords and Cambridges of the world, which became the great centers of learning. And nowadays, we moved on to further west to Harvard and Stanford and other such universities here in the US. And I've thrown in JNU there in that mix, Jawaharlal Nehru University, because it is also a very key player in driving a narrative about Hindus, Hinduism, etc. The consequences of this particular history is that nowadays, it is almost a given. Almost a default understanding that Hindus are always the aggressors and the villains, when it's actually the entire opposite most of the time. There is a massive distortion and massive cognitive dissonance amongst the Hindu people and even amongst the world's communities in terms of our self-understanding and our self-representation. The Hindu community is not in control of its own story and its narrative. Okay, this is a very, very important aspect of Hindu studies. Now, the economic collapse of India. So you might ask, what is the source of this? Yeah, Deepthi has raised her hand. Okay, let me stop sharing. Yeah, Deepthi. You want to type in a question? Yes, please, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay, yeah. So I'm a little confused when you say that Hindus are seen as the aggressors, because by whom are we seen as the aggressors?
No, I mean, see, if you listen to the narrative that is promoted in the West, right? It is very consistent that you take the most recent example of Kashmir, the abrogation of the Article 370. It is very clear that Hindus are the problem, and Muslims are the victims.
Okay, so you mean politically?
Yeah, politically. I mean, it is the narrative about our civilization is very much a political affair. Okay, and Hindu voices are not adequately represented out there. So that is the point I'm beginning with. Okay, let me move on. So where does this data come from? Okay, so I frequently get asked, what is the source of this data? Well, here is one source. So this person, the picture that you see is a person by the name Angus Madison. He wrote a very important book called The World Economy, Historical Statistics, and published it in 2004. And all the data in that chart comes from this particular book. Now, I have a question. My question is, during the 200-year period when England took control of India, how much money in current day US dollar terms did they extract from India? And when I say India, I mean greater India, the Indian subcontinent, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, all put together. How much money was extracted from India? Does somebody have an estimate? I would like some guesses at least. If you don't have an estimate, an authoritative estimate, make some guesses. You can type it in, okay? Just type in your guesses. I saw a number like 300 trillion. No, that's a little high. Few trillions, yes. How many trillions exactly? one can say economic massive downturn occurred. Yeah, few hundred millions. No, millions are way off. It's too low. Preeti Upala says 7 trillion. Okay, in trillions. Yes, that's correct. Okay. Now let me give you the current day estimates. Yeah, 50 trillion is closer to the estimate. So a very recent book called A Theory of Imperialism, written by Utsa Patnaik and Prabhat Patnaik, published by Columbia University Press, estimates that $45 trillion was taken out of the Indian economy during British rule of India. Sorry for the spelling mistake there. I'll correct it. And these are professors, working out of JNU and Delhi University today. Okay, and let me follow up with the second question. If you take out $45 trillion from a particular country or a region, what kind of consequences will arise for that society? And in our schools and colleges and universities, has anybody ever looked at the question, what kind of adverse consequences were inflicted on the Hindu world due to this type of massive extraction of wealth? Yeah, currently India is targeting some 5 trillion. So that's what Modi ji is saying, $5 trillion. But 45 trillion was extracted. So the question is, what kind of consequence would be inflicted, would arise in the wake of that kind of sustained economic, plunder, which is the only word we can use for the situation that we faced over a long time. Okay, that's a question for reflection. Let me go back to my deck now. Now, during that time, there was a lot of writing on Hindus and Hinduism that was produced. There are literally tens of thousands of books that were written by by outsiders, by Westerners, on India, on Hinduism, on the Hindu people. One of the landmark books was written by a person by the name James Mill, who never visited India. Nevertheless, he theorized extensively about the Hindus for his European audience, providing them with new knowledge about India. And here's a quotation. So, in truth, the Hindu, like the eunuch, excels in the qualities of a slave, dissembling, treacherous, mendacious to an excess which surpasses even the usual measure of uncultivated society. In the highest degree conceited of themselves and full of affected contempt for others, in physical sense, disgustingly unclean in their persons and houses. Now, this is a simple quotation, and it kind of stands in for an enormous amount of writing about India. It's written by James Mill in a book called The History of British India, published in 1817. And this book became a standard textbook for the British officers who came to India to set up their positions and roles in various parts of colonial India. And they learnt about the way India is, the way the Hindus are, through this book. And it became official knowledge. So the colonial narratives, here are a couple more quotations. So, the first one is from Karl Marx, who many of us have heard. So the question, therefore, he writes in 1853 from England, actually, when he was writing for a New York publication at the time. The question, therefore, is not whether the English had a right to conquer India, but whether we are to prefer India conquered by the Turk, by the Persian, by the Russian, to India conquered by the Briton. England has to fulfill a double mission in India, one destructive the annihilation of the old Asiatic society, the other regenerating and laying the material foundations of Western society in Asia. Okay, so this is Karl Marx again, somebody who never visited India, never saw India, writing from England. And at the bottom, you find our very famous person, Frederick Max Miller, writing from Oxford University in 1878. So the translation of the Veda will hereafter tell to a great extent on the fate of India and on the growth of millions of souls in that country. It is the root of their religion. And to show them what the root is, I feel sure the only way of uprooting all that has been sprung from it during the last 3,000 years, the ancient religion of India, is totally doomed. And if Christianity doesn't step in, whose fault will it be? And at that time, Max Muller actually believed that India would get completely Christianized, 100% Christianized within 50 years. That was his belief, personally. Now, let's move on to contemporary times. So here is a couple of very important voices. So this is Sheldon Pollock writing from Columbia University in a book which he wrote in 2001, an article he wrote in 2001. This Sultan Zainul Abdin, 1420 to 1470 AD, who had heard about her, Sharada Devi's miraculous presence in the temple, had hopes of witnessing an epiphany. He came as the pious devotee he was and begged to have some vision of the goddess in his sleep. Sharada, however, gave no sign of presence. Indeed, far from granting the Sultan darshan, the goddess made him smash to pieces her very own image. It's a fascinating piece of, you could almost say, not just obfuscation, but almost inverting the reality. He's making up a narrative about what happened, which is probably, 180 degrees the opposite of what happened. Neither did the Sultan come as the pious devotee that he was, nor did the goddess Sharada make him do anything. But we all know the enormous amount of damage caused by Islamic, objection to the various murtis and temples that they found in India. So here is another contemporary voice, Romila Thapar from Jawaharlal Nehru University. She writes, the Babri Masjid is a 16th century mosque that in the name of history and culture had been deemed a protected monument of the Indian state. But in the name of Hindu nationalism, it was destroyed by those antagonistic to its presence at a site that they claimed was sacred to them, marking a temple to Rama, even though the excavations of the Archaeological Survey of India and its readings have been strongly disputed by other archaeologists and historians. Okay, so what is she doing? She's introducing a doubt, an element of disputation as to whether indeed the Archaeological Survey of India's findings that there was indeed a Ram temple there in that site was true or false. Okay, so these are contemporary obfuscation, which is a deliberately throwing a certain amount of distortion into the discourse. And what it generates is a lot of confusion about the truth. Now, let's ask a different question. What is the right approach to the study of Hinduism? Do we approach it from the standpoint of philosophy, theology, history, religion, geopolitics, anthropology, sociology, psychology, philology, etc.? What is the right approach? Somebody have an answer? What is the right approach? You can type into the chat window, please. Shefali says Vedas. Yeah, but Vedas is a text, right? All of them. Somebody says all of them. All of these approaches, okay? All together. Each one is different. Yeah, so each angle of approach will give you a particular vantage point, a particular viewpoint, right? And you're going to get a particular angle, particular way of looking at the phenomena. Okay, let's move on. So here is a slow representation of a slow awakening in the academia. Okay, so this is Dr. Professor Balagangadhara from Ghent University in Belgium, and this is what he says. Virtually in every field of the human sciences, i.e. the humanities, encompassing such diverse disciplines as philosophy, theology, sociology, history, psychology, anthropology, religious studies, economics, and many others, there is a prevailing understanding of how to study India and Hindu culture, what questions to ask about it, what answers to give to those questions, what to say, and what not to say about it, and so on. This received knowledge reproduces descriptions of India that transform it into an inferior and backward culture in comparison to Western culture, both through presupposition and conclusion. In other words, what he's saying is the contemporary study of Hinduism begins with the presupposition that it is a backward culture, it's an inferior culture, and then it ends up concluding the same thing after a lot of argumentation. But there is a recognition that is happening very, very slowly in the academia that this has been the case for a long time. Why would you engage? Why should you engage with Hindu studies? So here is a chart that looks at different ways of accessing the world of Hinduism. We have our family traditions, we have temples and rituals, we have ashrams and gurus. But what does academic study make uniquely and distinctly possible? Okay, and here is just our construction of what it makes possible, right? So, if a person is merely looking for basic knowledge, some expertise in worship and practice, and even some personal spiritual advancement, I think the first three columns, family traditions, temples and rituals, ashrams and gurus, are reasonably adequate. But when you go further, and if you want to participate in not only personal transformation yourself, but also want to facilitate the personal transformation of other people, you want to engage in therapy and counseling as a chaplain, as a dharmic counselor, if you want to engage in teaching and research, if you want to represent Hindu Dharma in the public square through writing and articulation, speaking, enter the media and the public square, public spaces, participate in engagement, engage with advocacy and policy, get into debates and dialogues, represent Hinduism in a number of different places, and contest, defend Hinduism and contest stereotypes about Hindu culture, Hindu society, etc. Engage with conflict resolution, and take ownership of the narrative about Hindu culture and civilization. Then we think academic study of Hinduism is very, very important. If all of these are not important to you personally, then it may be entirely adequate to stick with gurus and ashrams, temples, rituals, and stay with family traditions, etc. Okay, moving on. What is the purpose of our study? So somebody already said rigor and depth, exploration and inquiry. Yes, so we want to promote an environment where the pursuit of knowledge and understanding becomes the center stage of our endeavor. So engagement with knowledge, knowledge systems, texts and traditions and so on is very important. But along the way, we also want to develop new skills. We want people to engage with different skill areas, in the realm of articulation, in the realm of engagement, writing, speaking, all forms of public engagement that are uh, increasingly legitimate today. And in the process, developed real expertise and credibility. And lastly, transformation, which is not only personal transformation, but making a transformative impact on society around us, and engage with the potential for global social impact. These are the stated purposes of our study. And in the process, we anticipate that the students will develop clarity, expertise, confidence, and be positioned to make an original contribution, not just to the Hindu world, not just to the Hindu people, but for humanity in general itself. Okay, so that's sort of the overall framework of why we are promoting the study of Hindu Dharma. Here is a quotation from Swami Vivekananda. It's a very good, very interesting quotation. He talks about how to study Hinduism. Hinduism means expansion. Expansion means realization. Man is to become divine. Of course, that includes woman too. And nowadays, I think we have to say that rather carefully. Realizing the divine more and more from day to day in an endless progress, in building up character and making for everything that is good and great, bringing peace to others and peace to one's own self. Religion is the highest motive power and therefore ought to be studied from that standpoint. Swami Vivekananda. Now, a quick little digress. The word is not the thing it represents. So if you look at this picture, what is this? Well, it is called water in English. It is called pani in Hindi, aqua in Latin, jal in Sanskrit, apaha also in Sanskrit, neer in Tamil, surprisingly, nira in Greek. Okay, so this is just a few words. The point is, it makes no sense to say, I love water, but I hate aqua or pani. They're all the same thing. Similarly, the menu is not the meal, is not the meal. The menu is not the meal. The word is not the thing itself. The description is not the described. So what is the thing that these words represent? What is the thing that these words represent? Is it Sanatana Dharma? Is it Hinduism? The Hindu Dharma? The religion? The tradition? A family of traditions? A culture? A civilization? A way of life? Okay. All of these are different access points to the thing that it is, right? But the words are not the thing. That's the whole point of this slide. What is the thing that these words represent? Brahman, Yahweh, God, Krishna, Ram, Shiva, Jehovah, Allah. What is the thing? Is it the same thing? Are they different things? Do people mean entirely different concepts when they speak about these things? Are they intersecting ideas or completely, disconnected ideas? I think these are topics worthy of investigation. So when you look at thing one and thing two, what is the difference? Okay, thing one and thing two, what is the difference? Well, thing one is accessible to the senses. Water can be touched, tasted, seen, heard, smelled, etc. Commonly known in the Hindu perspective, Upanishadic view as apara vidya. Apara vidya. That knowledge which is accessible to the senses, human senses. Whereas the thing at the bottom is inaccessible to the senses. Or is it accessible? Is it known or unknown? And this has been called Paravidya in the Upanishadic framework. Okay, so that's the difference between these two. accessible to the human senses and inaccessible to the human senses, or partially accessible to the human senses. Para-vidya, Brahma-vidya, and Atma-vidya. Okay. So here's a quotation from a very famous person who lived in near about Los Angeles at Ohio Valley. To understand life is to understand ourselves, and that is both the beginning and the end of education. It's a very powerful quotation, and in fact, it is non-different than what the Upanishad is saying, that Para-vidya is the ultimate vidya, Para-vidya, Atma-vidya, to understand oneself, and Brahma-vidya is the ultimate knowledge. A quick sideways. What is the significance of our lives? You know, if we ask ourselves as human beings, what is it that we are concerned with? And naturally, these two things, security and comfort, and all that is entailed by that, and having a good time, these are our predominant concerns in life. We call this Artha and Kama in the Hindu world. The Purusharthas of Artha and Kama, security and comfort, and having a good time. However, it is only when we reach into the realms of Dharma and Moksha that Hinduism becomes relevant and comes alive in a unique and distinct way. So our approach to the realm of Dharma and Moksha requires us to have an awakened intelligence, open up to spiritual intuition, get interested in self-knowledge, an integral understanding, an awareness, a deeper awareness of the great cosmic mystery of life. And all of this is what is entailed in the study of Hindu Dharma. Okay? And this is a uniquely distinct feature of Hindu Dharma, where we're entering an almost distinct domain, quite apart from our everyday realm of Artha and Kama. What does the study of Hindu Dharma entail? Well, it entails inquiry, research, reading, investigation, exploration, dialogue with fellow students, reflection, thought, observation, meditation, etc. And it requires us to have at least some degree of freedom from already knowing everything or already knowing a lot, and being willing to learn and see newly, willing to reconsider and reevaluate in the light of new facts or new understanding. And we have to deal with our own barriers for rigorous study, which is largely we think we know. And everybody has partial knowledge, particularly when it comes to Hindu Dharma. We all know something. We all know a little bit. But there's a lot more to learn and a lot more to know. And it's a human trait to imagine that the little that we know about whatever the phenomena is constitutes complete knowledge, total and complete knowledge, right? And if you see here on the right side, I've got this cartoon. What it says is we are now living in times where it doesn't even require you to know anything. You can just make up things. We are living in a very, very interesting time where making up our own reality has become very commonplace. So the Hindu University of America has developed a new vision and mission for itself. Our vision is to promoting dialogue across disciplines, cultures, and civilizations, while enabling self-discovery, conscious evolution, and harmony. The Hindu University of America will set the standard for the study of Hindu Dharma. And our mission is Hindu University of America provides education and knowledge systems based in Hindu thought, involving critical inquiry, ethics, and self-reflection, committed to fostering the culture and traditions of Hindu Dharma in an atmosphere of academic excellence and freedom. It prepares students for service, leadership, and global engagement. Now, we have developed an academic architecture for our university. This is very, very recent. This happened this year. So we have 4 divisions. We have a continuing education and certification division, where people can take courses a la carte, one course at a time, just keep learning as you go by, or focus on a certificate. The undergraduate division leading to associate bachelor's degrees, which we will launch in the near future. The graduate division, which awards MA and PhD programs and prepares future scholars and researchers, and advanced studies that supports postdoctoral research, writing, and publication. So we anticipate that the impact of this university will emerge from the top of the pyramid, and its viability will be supported by the bottom of the pyramid in terms of continuing education, certification, and other divisions. That's not very unusual. It's normal for most universities. So we are launching about 10 different programs, or at least 8 of them for now, with 2 coming in the near future. So the community education division offers 2 programs, community education and certificate programs. The graduate program has 5 different entry points, graduate diplomas, master's degrees, and doctoral degrees. Advanced studies is more focused on fellowships for doing advanced research, and undergraduate programs are postponed for now, but we will get into it very soon. So we are going through a reinvention phase of this university. A new board was formed in January 2019. New academic team was formed in April. Curriculum redesign in June. We launched a new website, and the university is open for enrollment. We've already started our first course in the fall quarter. In terms of areas of studies, we have 6 areas of studies which we have announced so far. So on the left side, you have deep immersion into Hindu studies, which engages with Hindu studies foundations, Sanskrit studies, texts, and traditions. On the right side, we have the opportunity to enable deep engagement with Western thought, post-colonial Hindu studies, history and method, conflict and peace studies. And we've got a number of courses in each area. We've got nearly 10 programs, 6 areas of study, in 75 odd courses that we have announced already, and slowly we'll be making these courses available for registration. Who could take up this study? Well, 2 kinds of people. One who are culturally Hindu, people who are looking to develop new skills and expertise, people who wish to participate in the public square in terms of writing and speaking. Young people who are curious about life, looking for direction, that's also very welcome. And also culturally non-Hindu people who are interested in Hindu thought and culture, yoga, New Age, spiritual groups, public service, teachers, doctors, counselors, and therapists, and anybody who's interested in an authentic perspective on Hindu thought can take up this study. Now, we want to share with you that we are offering an orientation to Hindu studies, which is a 1 credit hour course starting in January. So we are already piloting this course in the fall quarter. This course is going on right now with 56 students. It entails 10 hours of classes and 20 hours of self-study, approximately 30 hours of work. And it'll provide an overview and in-depth understanding of the different areas of study and the various sample courses in the curriculum. We'll engage with readings from some texts. We'll give you papers to read and videos to watch. We ground ourselves in a set of select Sanskrit words and phrases, and it will be taught by multiple faculty. So many of these people are doctor, they got PhDs from different universities. Dr. Vishwa Aduri, for example, has 3 PhDs. Dr. Swamini Agamananda has got a PhD from Harvard University, and on and on. So this will be a very good, very engaging and interesting class, which we are making available. So the course details are as follows. The course costs $300 for a 1 credit hour course if registered before December 1st. And after that, it will become $325. The initial program that we recommend is you just get into the continuing education program, and we'll waive the admission fees for webinar attendees. The course starts on January 6th and will end on March 20th for a period of about 11 weeks total. There'll be a 60-minute class, much like today, same time, 8 p.m. Central Time to 9 p.m. Central Time, and 6 p.m. Pacific Time. There is no grading for the course. People will pass or fail based on their participation. And there'll be some assignments in terms of readings, some videos to watch, and a couple of essays, short essays to write. Okay, so this is the course that is available for you to register. Now, the structure of the course is, in the 11 weeks, we'll go through some basics of Hindu studies, why we need to get into Hindu studies, etc., to what end, an in-depth look at colonialism and its aftermath, the building blocks of Hindu thought, academic architecture of the university, divisions, programs, areas of study, and Hindu studies foundations. Sanskrit studies will take a very deep immersion into the world of Sanskrit, texts and traditions, how to study a text, for example, like the Mahabharata. Post-colonial Hindu studies will take an in-depth look in one of the classes, history and method, and immersion into Western European thought. Conflict and peace studies. Can we get along and live peacefully? And what does Hinduism have to say about that? Future directions and pathways, week 10, and we'll then speculate on a possible journey for some of the students. Then week 11 will be final discussion and assessment. The learning outcomes of this course are, you'll be able to explore various options and trajectories available in the Hindu Studies program. You'll be able to distinguish the central ideas and concepts that constitute the foundations of Hindu Dharma, Hindu Studies foundations. You'll be able to inquire into and evaluate different elective areas of study and courses offered. We'll take a very deep look at Sanskrit, texts and traditions, history and method, post-colonial Hindu studies, and conflict and peace studies, and distinguish between pathways towards a deep study of Hindu thought, whether you want to immerse yourself in Hindu thought or go into deep engagement with Western thought from a Hindu perspective. And you will be able to discover and create pathways for engagement with this curriculum. Okay. So that is the course, and future possibilities in terms of knowledge, skills, and transformation. Where this will take you eventually in terms of skills, in terms of expertise, in terms of being able to be of service in the world and playing a transformative role in the world around you, which is what our hope is for you. It could take you into any of these dimensions, chaplains and counselors, consultants, Ayurveda, yoga, academic professors, media professionals, teachers, writers, bloggers. So there's a whole world of possibilities here for all of you to pursue. So with that, I will take some questions in the remaining available time. Okay, so I'm coming back here now. Why do some folks refer to Hinduism as a way of life and not a religion? Does that not open the door for conversions to other religions? Yeah, I mean, I think people have tried to explain what it is, and different people have taken different approaches to that. How to talk about it. Dharma should be at the bottom. Artha and Kama are based on dharma. Well, there is the Hindu view, but in contemporary world, I mean, I don't know if there is people who generally agree with that. Artha and Kama pretty much stand alone today, and even the Hindu world has become very corrupt and very adharmic in large measure. Any other questions, please? We have about 8 minutes. I'd like to take a few questions about what you've heard so far and anything that is striking you as interesting or worth discussing. I've unmuted everybody. You can actually ask questions.
So Kalyan.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Narendranath here. So
yes, sir.
the courses,
yeah.
For example, either the one that's ongoing or the one, somebody in the back Could you please mute?
Okay, let me do one thing. I'm going to mute everybody. Just hold on. People are a lot of noise. I'm going to mute everybody.
Second fix is we have to get email notification.
Okay. The person who was speaking, can you please kindly unmute yourself and you can speak?
Okay, this is Narendranath here. Can
Yes,
you hear
yes.
me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think the presentation was kind of a very general, and then it's
Yeah.
so. My question is for
Yes.
the course. This either whether it's a certification course or later on.
Yeah.
So it's a 10-week course, and then that's going to be. I would imagine it's online.
Yes.
But yeah, but does it have to be real time? Meaning online, meaning let's say when you are giving your session, let's say one of the classes on a Thursday at 6 to
Yeah.
7 Pacific time.
Yeah.
If people cannot attend, for example, they're on travel for business, etc. So those are available as a recorded session.
Yes,
that
yes,
people
absolutely.
Come back, right?
Absolutely, yes. So after every class, we will post the recording of the class, and people who absolutely have to miss the class will be able to listen to the recording. But we do recommend that people try to make as many sessions as possible, because there'll be a lot of discussion during these classes.
Right. And one other, if I may add, you had presented a slide where you said, the skills, the knowledge, etc., etc.
Yeah.
I think it would also be good to have, at the end of the day, it has to lead towards having a passion for what our ancestors and the rishis developed over millennia.
Yeah.
Which they went ahead and then also rescued. I mean, the entire, so some of the population, some portion of the population, people have rescued it in spite of 800 years, almost 1,000 years of occupation.
That's right.
Including being put to the sword and so on, but they have actually, and I don't think in the annals of world history, anywhere a knowledge has been, saved and then passed on. I mean, if we take a look at it, the Alexandria Library and the various other libraries, they were all burned down. So all those knowledges were gone. But because our knowledge is also not only Smriti, but also Shruti, the knowledge has been also preserved, but also the intonation, etc., everything has been preserved in its original form.
Some of it has been preserved.
Right, some of it has been preserved.
We don't know what has not been. We all don't know what has not been preserved.
Correct. So the point that I was trying to make is, at the end of the day, it's also to develop, to lead to a passion, which is what is going to continue. Otherwise, it is going to be more at an academic level.
I think my response to that is, see, I think as we encounter Hindu thought in its full range of expression, that passion that you're talking about, I hope would emerge naturally, as we begin to appreciate, the depth of what is contained in those traditions of knowledge and so on.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good. So I'm going to address a couple of questions here. Can we reform the temple experience? Now that's, we can, but it's going to take a lot of people like you to do it at your level at the local temple and so on. So it's not these temples are all autonomous entities. There's going to be no massive movement that's going to affect all the temples at the same time and so on and so forth. Could you say something about accreditation, CHIA or ATS? Okay. So the thing is, see, Hindu University of America is on a accreditation pathway right now. We are not accredited right now, but our accreditation roadmap calls for accreditation in 3 stages. We're not going to go to the Association of Theological Schools because they don't know how to accredit a Hindu institution. They know how to accredit Christian schools and colleges. We have an institution set up already called the International Accreditation Council for Dharma Schools and Colleges, IACDSC. But it is not yet recognized by the Council for Higher Education Accreditation. But we are going to go through this IACDSC first. Then the next stage, we'll go through Distance Education Accreditation Commission, DEAC. And finally, we'll get accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, SACS. And if you get through all of this successfully, we'll be a fully accredited institution. Okay, now describe so let's see, priests need to speak in a local language, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm not going to address that, please. There is a complex problem. Can you describe the requirement, duration, contents, etc. with the PhD? Yeah, so, you know, you can easily look at that on the website. Okay, so I'll show you all how to look at it on the website. And then yeah, let me go to, this is the university website. So here, you know, under programs of study. So for each of these programs, so Doctor of Philosophy, let's say, you go here. So you will get some details. Okay. So here it gives you how many credit hours you need, a very detailed description. It's all available on the website. Okay, so I think everything you need is available on the website. So I encourage all of you to study the website in a little bit of detail, and then write to us, and we'll get into a personal discussion with you quite comfortably. Okay. I was expecting some references to Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, definitely. We'll talk about Bhagavad Gita. Is a very important part of the Hindu studies foundations area of studies. So we'll get into Bhagavad Gita at a great, and not just Bhagavad Gita, but also some other foundational texts as part of this curriculum. Just not today. Okay. Any other questions? Savitri ji.
Thank you so much, Kalyanji. It was really a very concise and nice presentation. We're looking forward. I'm looking forward to starting the course on 6th of January, you said, right?
Yes. 6th of January. Wonderful.
And we'll get an enrollment notification. When can we expect an enrollment notification?
We'll get it very soon. Yeah. We'll send you soon. Yeah. Okay.
Sounds good.
Very good.
You.
Okay, wonderful. We are at the 9 o'clock hour, and I think from a central time standpoint, I just want to conclude today's webinar by thanking all of you for attending and participating, and I really appreciate your time and your interest in this subject matter, and we'll be in touch with you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you.